Friar's Log, Entry 1. Today was yet another bleak and dismal reminder of how pathetic my life is. I had decided to go to Lord Capulet's grand ball. Supposedly, there would be great joy and merriment for all, though all I saw was meaningless dancing to meaningless music. And then, I saw her, fair Juliet, standing across the room, dressed in the most glorious of raiments. I decided my time was now. I asked her to dance. She asked me to die. After that depressing turn of events, I decided to go and do one of the few things that I could still find my happiness in: collecting poisonous herbs and medicinal flowers. As I was wrapping up my task, he came. The boy, Romeo, walked right up next to me and started talking. Most of it I deemed as just the blathering of such a boisterous youth, until he said, "We met, we wooed, and made exchange of vow. I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today." I was shocked at first, naturally, but then surprise gave way to smoldering anger. After tonight's brief interaction with that girl, even though she did not recognize me in my disguise, I had hoped never to hear the name Juliet again. However, in the end I consented and said, "In one respect I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love." Obviously, I didn't believe any of that and knew only trouble would come of this. However, I had much greater troubles in store for them. Yes, by the end of this week, both insufferable Juliet and foolhardy Romeo will be dead. Friar's Log, Entry 2. Oh, what a wretched existence that I am leading. It seems like the very universe itself wishes for my long suffering. After marrying those two imbeciles to each other this morning, I decided to go talk to the Capulet named Tybalt. I told him that a certain Romeo would be wandering the streets of Verona this afternoon, boasting of how he snuck into the Capulet's ball, right under Tybalt's very nose. Needless to say, I thought this plan was foolproof. If Tybalt sees Romeo and kills him, I just have Juliet to murder. If Romeo kills Tybalt, then the law will have him executed. Either way, problem solved, right? Wrong! After Romeo killed Tybalt, I was expecting the prince to say he must be killed. I told the fool he could hide in my cell, and as soon as the prince decreed it, I would hand him right over. Alas, all I got to do was storm back into my cell and tell the blubbering fool that he was lucky beyond imagination and was only banished. And do you know what he did? He had the audacity to start crying aloud, saying silly things like, "There is no world without Verona walls, but purgatory, torture, hell itself, hence banished is banished from this world." So, naturally I did what any kind, considerate, and caring father would do. I screamed at him, saying things like, "O deadly sin, O rude unthankfulness, thy fault our laws call death, but the kind prince taking thy part hath rushed aside the law and turned that black word death to banishment." Thankfully, after the longest time, Juliet's nurse came in and finally calmed the boy down, talking about visiting Juliet tonight. I had already been quite content with the outcome, however, once I got my anger resolved. After all, banishment is a start and better than nothing. I figure that for now that shall have to do for Romeo. Now, however, it is time to start thinking about how to kill Juliet. Friar's Log, Entry 3. Oh, glorious, glorious day. Things finally seem to start turning towards my favor. Today the girl Juliet comes into my monastery, whining and moping about how she must marry the County Paris. Normally I would have been thrilled to see something make her so sad, but unfortunately I couldn't shame myself and allow this girl to remarry. So instead I came up with a more devious plan. As the girl was at her lowest, I decided to say, "If rather than to marry County Paris, thou hast the strength of will to slay thyself, then is it likely thou wilt undertake a thing like death to chide away the shame? Ah, yes. I gave the girl one of my most rare of potions, one that simulates death itself for 42 hours. This way she could avoid marrying Paris, and when she woke up in her tomb after her parents had mourned her, I would reunite her with the banished Romeo, and they could run off together, living happily ever after. To further reassure her, I even wrote a letter to give to Romeo, telling him when to meet me and how Juliet wasn't really dead. What that girl didn't know is the letter I sent actually informs Romeo that his deepest love is now dead. She just died in the middle of the night, almost like magic. I figure the boy can live out the rest of his life in agony until I can find a way to make his death extra painful. As for Juliet, oh, she will wake up in 42 hours in her tomb, but it shall be her tomb. I will not be there to let her out, and she will slowly suffocate to death, wondering what happened. Oh, glorious day indeed. Finally, my revenge shall be fulfilled. Friar's Log, Entry 4. The dark deed is finally done. However, I must admit things did turn out a little differently than I might have imagined. I suppose we should start with what happened to Romeo. As it would happen, his serving man Balthazar heard of the poor Juliet's death and rushed off to tell his master immediately. I suppose I should thank Balthazar, for without his great diligence I guess Romeo would still be alive. Had Romeo learned of Juliet's death from my letter, he would have already been too late. Juliet would truly be dead. However, when he heard the news, he rushed right over to the Capulet's tomb, and decided to pay Juliet a visit while she was still sleeping. I myself had decided to visit her one last time, just to make sure she was still sleeping before I locked the tomb. But what did I find? Romeo's serving man. I knew at once that Romeo could not be in the tomb when Juliet woke up, or all would be ruined, so I said to Balthazar, "Stay then, I'll go alone. Fear comes upon me. Oh, much I fear some ill unthrifty thing." However, when I managed to actually enter the tomb, I find that Romeo has killed Paris, only so that he could then commit suicide. Then Juliet woke up and saw her beloved dead. I tried to reason with her not to do anything rash, for I wanted to torture her at least one more time before I killed her. However, she wouldn't listen and stabbed herself with Romeo's dagger. I knew right away that soon the watch would be here, and with 3 dead bodies and me being the only one alive, I knew I must escape. Sadly, my attempt to flee failed, and I was brought back to the families of those killed, and even the prince. Naturally, I looked fairly suspicious, and rightly so, but I always have had a way with words. I decided to come clean and tell them what really happened to Romeo and Juliet, obviously omitting the parts about me wanting them dead. I ended my tale saying, "And if aught in this miscarried by my fault, let my old life be sacrificed some hour before his time unto the rigor of severest law." I had still expected there to be at least some lingering suspicion. Naturally, there were some great holes in my story, but the fools completely bought it. They completely excused me of any charges I might have had. And when it's all said and done, I suppose I just have one thing to say to you, dear journal. Violence and self-revenge is always the answer. How else did Hammurabi stop people from committing evil deeds? With violence. In fact, committing violent acts isn't even really a crime. Well, that is if you know how to cover your tracks, at least. Now, I must depart. With all these deaths, I'm a very busy man, and I still need to collect my poisonous herbs so I can torture I mean the enemies of the church. Well, till we meet again, sweet journal.